Okay, it is 12:05, so let's get started with it. Everybody, so first of all, I have to say thank you so much for finding some time in your day, in your evening, wherever in the world you are. So welcome to Sysonex. So Sysonex, we deliver solutions that inspire you. So from our side, we are located here in Toronto, Canada. And today's topic that we really want to spend some time on is the humble risk register. The humble risk register that delivers a board directions tool for driving strategy. Now, there's a specific element towards driving the strategy that I want to highlight with you guys. Risk itself should drive strategy. How risk drives strategy? There's a number of ways and views that people are looking at it, but definitely for the board, towards understanding how the organization is moving ahead and where there are any debt or any issues or concerns, the risk register really helps. So I want to talk about just a little bit about Sysonex. So Sysonex is a next generation company. We have three products: SysRisk, SysAudit, SysIncident, and we are hopefully providing strategic advantage and competitive edge to our clients throughout the globe. So that brings me to this slide, that board members today are increasingly asking for capabilities that they did not need before. We're really looking at a situation where more and more board members are saying that, you know what, I want to drive visualization, I want to drive prioritization, I need central collaboration, data-driven decision-making, and governance. And in all of these cases, there's not a single element here that the board needs that where data is not at the center of it. Data-related discussion is always at the center of risk. And the best way to aggregate, accumulate, store, and visualize and actually share that data is via the risk register. So I'm going to take you to this particular slide. This is a favorite slide of mine, and the who, what, why, how, etc., that kind of definition. So the ultimate consumer of information at the end of the day is the corporate board that delivers on risk appetite, risk management direction, but it looks for visualization, governs strategic direction, oversee risk management maturity. However, importantly enough, it really starts with enterprise level risk data collection. Load the data, enter, edit, update the data, find your data. And this entire exercise that you see, targeting articulation of risk, resolving of risk, ensuring risk controls, risk dashboard, is really tied with data. So risk management itself, a good part of it is really about aggregating, collecting, and utilizing the data that you have in your organization, specifically slanted to the risk and also the opportunity tied to it. This is a particular risk dashboard for heat maps. This is another dashboard, and I'm going to go very fast with these slides because these are data points that we need on a regular basis from organization to organization. But how that data is coming, that is coming via risk register, is being fed as information. Even your risk trend creation, risk trend and project progress, risk trend and prioritization, all of these data points are done through having your optimal risk register. Yet, for all the different risk categories and their different risk statuses, you're not collecting data in isolation. You're collecting data from multiple sources, but those data that you collect from risk from your organization is not one type of data. You have operational risk, you have business risk, you have environmental risk, political risk, financial, reputational, real, pure risk, etc. And these data points are required so that way you can understand the risk footprint of your organization. And when you know the risk footprint of your organization, only then you can add the strategic lens that you want and know how your strategy is going to impact your organization, and also understand which risks are going to be a blocker for ensuring your strategic growth. So again, a particular risk dashboard or risk view that we can deliver on. Another board reporting tool. Now, this is a piece of information that we really want to say. why are we using enterprise risk register today? So from the board, we're looking at top strategic and enterprise risks, and they need to align to goals towards driving strategy. We need to compare current versus emerging risks, not risks for today and tomorrow, but rather on a strategic level from a long-term risk. We need to inform risk appetite and capital allocation. We need to monitor accountability and definitely drive organizational resilience. So these are 5 bullet points that are critical towards understanding how a organization's board utilizes the risk register towards driving their strategy in the organization. So review, compare, inform, monitor, and evaluate. And it's really all tied to risk. Now, all the different colleagues and team members were saying, no, we've actually covered risk register and it has no value. To them, I want to say that let's do a comparative study. And I really want you guys to look at it. It's a very wordy slide, but there's a reason for it to be wordy. So we want to look at how ISO and COSO and it actually delivers on a good risk register. A formal mandate for a register, it's not an ISO, it's not in COSO, but you use the risk register or equivalent risk to know the list of risks that you have. Risk identification. Your ISO does tell you you need to identify risk. COSO tells you to identify risk, but where do you capture that risk? You need to have that data collection effort to collect that risk. It's not being done by the board, for sure, no. Your chief risk officer definitely is not delivering or capturing the risk, but definitely your risk analyst day in, day out. And for the colleagues who are here who are capturing risk, I owe a great deal of debt to you. It's because of the effort that you do. It allows us to understand how our strategy is impacted by the risk that we see today. Risk assessment, likelihood impact, evaluate risk, and again, in the risk register, you want to have likelihood, impact, risk score rating. So these are data points within the risk register. Your controls mitigation, the controls that you see, you need to have that in your risk register. Define responses, so document existing controls, mitigation plans, residual risk. You need to know about ownership, assign risk owners, assign owners for responsibility and accountability, ensure that you have a risk owner field in a risk register. Now, if you're doing this in a traditional Word document or a Excel sheet or even a PowerPoint, it doesn't cut it. A number of the tools that you might be using, they might not even be geared towards risk management in general. But these are views, these are information that are required and requested by the board. What about monitoring and review? I know we showed several of these slides previous that covered monitoring, that covered reviewing. Guess what? Monitoring and review is very important in ISO. Again, ongoing evaluation, adjustments, feedback loops, for which ties with monitoring, is also important in COSO. And guess what? You need a review date, update logs, status, key risk indicators, all good practice for a risk register. Now, I want to tell you about communication and reporting. So communicate and consult the stakeholders, and that is a massive work that the risk management team continuously does. That is consulting the stakeholders that these are the issues and the information that we have at our disposal, and this is how the organization's risk footprint looks today. Guess what? Your escalation, reporting past, summary metrics, they're all tied with your risk register. Integration with strategy, this is what the main topic is. Guess what? You need to map your risks to your objectives or your strategic goals. Unless you have a view of information that is aggregated, that is filtered, that is collected, and that states, here are your main risks that you're facing today. You can't trace your strategy and risk together. It does not come out of thin air. There's a lot of work that needs to go there. So individuals or colleagues who feel that the risk register has had its best days behind it, I think there are corrections that definitely can be done. And I think those are some of the corrections that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But definitely the need for data collection and aggregating risk information is extremely valuable, and it continues to be valuable, and going forward, it will stay valuable. So finally, just to end with metrics and indicators, use data and metrics where available, again for ISO, use KRIs and indicators for significant risk, and include KRI threshold fields where possible. So guys, if there's anything that you really want to take away from this, know that these aspects of risk management that is included in ISO and COSO, to collect this data, you need to have a location to store that data. Now, you may store it in many different ways, but to have it structured means you can actually show the data in all its intended purpose for visualization, for monitoring, for reporting, and most of all, towards delivering on strategic directions. Okay, so let's talk about the risk register updates, the what. That is what's really happening, because collecting data is no easy task. Using a risk register is no easy task. It never has been. There has to be consolidated effort, energy put into this activity to deliver on risk management, and align it to strategies. So risk register updates, the what, the who. So the chief risk officer owns and consolidates the reporting. Enterprise risk functions coordinates inputs across the divisions, and business risk owners updates incidents metrics and control results, and audit and compliance add assurance findings and obligations. So these are the who's that are really contributing towards aggregating that risk for your organization. How is it really happening? Via periodic assessments, and I want to mention conscious inputs just in a bit, but management review, AI feeds, and analytics. But all of these cases, what the issue or the concern that we face repeatedly, and as risk practitioners, we're almost held to task that you create a risk, you add a risk, and the day that you've added, it's already old, it's already stale, because the organizations are going extremely fast. Their directions, their business objectives, it's extremely fast. How does a risk register reflect that? That's the key point. And that point is via continuous inputs from incidents, audits, regulatory changes, and continuous inputs that are added within a dynamic register that continuously updates the system. So that way, the data that is actually added within a system is updated and visualized everywhere within the organization. So that is something that is not possible within a spreadsheet, within a slide deck, within a Word document. So to all the colleagues who say that risk ratios do get stale very fast, you're right. But a living risk register that has continuous updates, continuous inputs, and continuous events and incidents integration allows you to deliver on an updated risk register and its visualization in a real-time basis. And that is where we are heading right now. Anyways, continuing on the when, the traditional ERRs, and this is what the issue really is quarterly and semi-annual is too slow, because we live in a very extremely fast-paced, volatile environment where things change extremely fast. So that quarterly and semi-annual review, it's just not enough. The board review also via quarterly committee sessions, annual strategic deep dives monthly in high-risk industries. But the live risk, the live ERRs, is when that data is being continuously updated via your data analyst, via your frontline staff officers. That's where the rich data for risk is being updated and being made available throughout the organization for the decision maker, for the board to be available and to be utilized. So finally, why should we actually continue to pursue the updates of risk register for any organization? Enhance decision accuracy, enable rapid response to shifts. And I want to say rapid response to shifts is only possible when you have live ERRs, when you have continuous inputs, continuous updates, and continuous visualizations. Finally, we need to ensure that we reinforce accountability and ownership throughout the organization. Risk is not an individual sport. It's not like tennis. It's not like sorry, it is a collective sport. It is soccer. Uh, and you have to have a team where you're really going towards making success happen because it's a team success. Finally, it strengthens stakeholder confidence through transparency, but not only stakeholder, because your board is not only looking at the stakeholder, they're also looking at the shareholder. It's the shareholder value. When shareholders realize you're updating the risk, you're analyzing it on a regular basis, you're on top of your risk issues and concerns throughout the day, throughout the month, there's a greater degree of satisfaction from a shareholder perspective. In fact, there's some studies were presented where it's seen that organizations that have better risk practices also run better. Okay, so let's go to really the value of the risk register, where we consolidation of risk, transparency, alignment, decision support, accountability. Board concerns regarding risk. And that is exactly what we're trying to do, trying to resolve. That is timeliness. Does the register capture emerging, continuous, direct risk? Materiality. Do the entries reflect the most strategic threats? Accountability. Is there ownership? Is somebody actually doing something about it? Integration. Are links to planning, finance, and resilience explicit? Yes, they are. Yes, they can be. And actionability. Does it drive decisions or merely it documents the issues? So your action speaks louder than the words that are presented. So you definitely need to have the connection of a identification of a risk, a individual that is assigned and resource towards resolving that risk, and finally resolving that risk so that the board actually understands that this risk is either something that they need to work with, or something that has been resolved and it can be put into a lower priority as of right now. So let's look at the next slide, and that is towards a better risk register, the live risk register. A live risk register represents the modern evolution, from static records that are stored in Excel sheets, that are stored in Word documents, that are stored in your slides, that are stored in somebody's mind, somebody's best idea. No, we need to aggregate it and collect it, but we need to have real-time updates. Definitely, we need to ensure that AI and predictive analytics can prioritize those risks as they appear, or as the situation circumstances change within the organization. Visualization and dashboards need to be present, direct links to strategy, governance, and integration. So I want to leave this with you guys. So if you think that what are the things that we should really take away, I really want to go back to this specific slide that says the who, the how, the when, and the why. And the highlights really are continuous inputs, live ERRs, and rapid response to shifts. These are critical items. And finally, when you have a debate about all this work that you're doing in your risk register, yet somebody says, what is the value in all of this? The value is about alignment and driving the strategy. And the areas that you're covering are formal mandate for the register, risk identification, risk assessment, controls, ownership, monitoring, communication, integration, dynamics, and metrics. And these are the good practices for the register. So that brings me to this slide, that is empower your enterprise, identify risk, resolve non-compliance, and drive seamless innovation. And that brings me to a particular demo that I want to quickly give to you guys. And in the screen share, I want to quickly show you the SysRisk product that we have. Whenever you log in, it logs in with your profile. It provides your account setting, account information, provides your subscription to your products, and hopefully it uploads your memberships, etc. But the part that we really want to talk about is the enterprise risk management ability. So this is like not so populated data, but what we really want to take you is the risk entry. The risk entry here is you select the category, and that's the different areas of risk that you've identified in your organization, the risk title that you want to add, description, resolution, risk owner, risk assigned to, who's monitoring your risk, the likelihood, the impact severity, etc. And you can add these risk items. But once you've added a object or an entity, that does not necessarily mean that it's risk. It needs to go through an approval queue. And you have to have a queue that allows your approval. And you can have a meeting or discussion where you are approving a risk within your team. Once that risk actually gets approved, once that potential risk object gets approved, it goes into the risk register where it has its own life cycle of initiated, in execution, resolved, blocked, canceled, partially closed, and closed. And then at any point of time, based on that risk register, you can then look at your prioritization. And again, your minor, moderate, major, critical risk are all visible, visualized, and available from single location. And you can also simply, by clicking on any of these items, you can just say, okay, where are my moderate risk? Where are my major risk? What's the specific entity? Where is this? And you can do that. So this is a live risk register. Not only is this live risk register, you can also click on an edit view, and it takes you to that risk item where you can start initiating on that work. And as soon as you start working, your logs are initiated. It shows when you started, when 7 days log, 15 days log, 1 month log. You can download that log. You can save this risk. And once it's done, you can actually say it's resolved, blocked, or canceled. And the other part of it is that if you want, you can copy this risk item and to all of your colleagues, you can set it in Teams, and they can just start visualizing it right away. And that's powerful, extremely powerful. You can, so with this risk item, you can start adding documents, the document title, the category that you've actually created as a subcategory, who's the individual who's reviewing it, upload the document, and the list of documents tied to that specific risk item that you've uploaded. And finally, the risk controls that you've added to it. So you realize it gives you a comparative study between these two risk areas and all the risk controls that you've added to that risk. So that's what we're really trying to implement or trying to share with the world, as opposed to having a risk register that is a spreadsheet, that is a PowerPoint or a Word document. Okay, so I'm going to close this. And after closing this, as I'd say, I want to mention that the opportunity is out there. SysRisk does deliver great risk registers, and we'd be more than happy to support you guys in your initiatives. One of the things that I know it's well versed is that the objective is to, if you really appreciate the individual, you really want to teach them how to fish, not necessarily offer them the fish. So from our side, we are hoping to work with our colleagues towards supporting their risk maturity as a practice, as opposed to here's your tool, here's the tooling, etc. So we're more than happy to work with you guys. I will stop at this point of time. And again, thank you for everybody to being here today. And I'll open our portal for question period. So I'll stop sharing.